Homie, you did one single move, and somehow the entire hate department in your universe went into panic mode like someone smashed the emergency button on their insecurities. You didn't scream, you didn't announce, you didn't drop a speech about leveling up. You just acted. And the shockwave detonated every fragile ego within emotional range of your existence. You thought it was small, you thought it was casual. But the way haters reacted, you'd think you hijacked a satellite and broadcasted your glow-up across their nightmares. One move, one bold step, and their souls started buffering. Their jealousy had a software update. Their inner villains suddenly needed therapy. That's how heavy your energy hit. Because, let's be honest, they weren't watching you with neutrality. They were monitoring you like unpaid interns in the FBI of your personal life, studying your silence, refreshing your mistakes, waiting for some sign that you were as mediocre as they told themselves. But instead of breaking, you breathed differently for 2 seconds, and their internal alarms shrieked. And the funniest thing is, you didn't even do anything dramatic. You didn't throw a revenge arc into the universe. You didn't expose anybody. You just evolved in a way that wasn't up for discussion. You changed your walk, fixed your posture, posted something with confidence dripping off your skin like gasoline. And suddenly, every hater you've ever encountered felt spiritually waterboarded. See, people who secretly wish for your downfall operate on a delicate ecosystem. They need you predictable. They need you insecure. They need you operating at 10% battery so they can convince themselves they're fully charged. You were supposed to stay in the same chapter, in the same role, in the same emotional cage they built around you with their expectations. But the moment you shifted, even slightly, the whole ecosystem collapsed. They weren't ready for a version of you that wasn't begging for validation. They weren't prepared for a version of you that stood up without trembling. They weren't prepared for you to realize you never needed their applause to begin with. So when you took that one bold step, they reacted like your glow was a personal attack. It wasn't just jealousy, it was panic. The kind of panic people feel when the script they wrote for you catches fire in their hands. They saw potential rising in your spine, and it burned their illusions. They saw confidence settling into your voice, and it broke their internal ranking system. Because the truth is, haters don't fear your weakness. They fear your awakening. And that one move you made, it wasn't a move to them. It was a prophecy. It was confirmation that the version of you they tried so hard to bury wasn't dead. You were simply loading. And now you're running a software they don't have the hardware to compete with. They didn't expect it to hit them where it hurts. The ego, the pride, the insecure architecture they built around themselves to feel superior. But your evolution wasn't friendly. It was surgical. It exposed who had been secretly rooting against you. It revealed who needed you small to feel tall. It showed you who only clapped when you were broken enough to admire them. Your glow didn't threaten the world. It threatened the people who needed you dim. And that one move made their entire identity glitch. Think about it. Haters don't announce themselves. They lurk, they wait, they pretend to be neutral. They study your pain like it's their homework. They scroll through your life, hoping to find proof that you deserved the disrespect. Their silence isn't peace, it's surveillance. They were analyzing you with the same intensity as a jealous ex stalking your page at 3 a.m. They were rehearsing the celebration dance for the moment you fell. But then you flicked the energy in your aura, and suddenly their hearts got stage fright. Some people aren't mad because you succeeded. They're mad because you succeeded without asking them how. You didn't take their advice. You didn't follow their blueprint. You didn't collapse just because they predicted you would. You moved in a direction they never considered you capable of. And that scares them because it breaks the fantasy that they understood you, that they were above you, that they were justified in treating you like an extra in your own life. But when you took that step, physical, emotional, spiritual, it showed them something they never wanted to admit. You were never beneath them. You were simply distracted. And now that your attention is back on yourself, their illusions are crumbling. They don't know how to handle a version of you that isn't in survival mode. They don't know how to handle a version of you that doesn't explain itself. They don't know how to handle a version of you that radiates without permission. Because for the first time, they're seeing what your potential looks like when it's not suffocating under their expectations. You want to know why that one move hit so hard? Because haters are allergic to authenticity. They needed you predictable, not powerful. They needed you confused, not centered. They needed you silent, not strategic. But when you stepped into that new energy, the universe didn't whisper. It detonated. Everything about you began broadcasting a frequency that exposed the insecurities living inside other people. It wasn't intentional. You weren't trying to trigger them. You were just living. But your existence hit their soft spots with military precision. They felt your rise in places inside themselves they don't want to confront. That's why the reaction was immediate. That's why the tension grew thick. That's why their smiles started glitching. Suddenly everyone you outgrew pretended they never knew you. Suddenly people who doubted you went dead silent. Suddenly the ones who mocked your ambition became terrified witnesses to your acceleration. Because when someone evolves in front of people who stayed the same, the guilt is violent. It flips their internal calm into chaos. They start comparing themselves even though you never invited them to the competition. They start projecting because your growth exposes their stagnation. They start discrediting your wins because acknowledging them would force them to confront their own laziness. You didn't change for them. You didn't rise to spite them. You didn't step into a new version to prove anything. But they're experiencing it like you declared psychological warfare. To them, your progress is an attack. Your confidence is a threat. Your silence is disrespect. Because nothing hurts a hater more than watching someone they underestimated take flight. And the irony? They saw the warning signs. They saw you getting quieter. They saw the shift in your eyes. They saw the way your energy stopped leaking into dead friendships and useless conversations. They saw you rebuild yourself step by step, boundary by boundary, breath by breath. But they told themselves it was temporary, a phase, a delusion that would collapse soon enough. Then you made that one move, and every delusion they had about you detonated. That's why your glow feels like sabotage to them. That's why your evolution feels illegal in their world. That's why your confidence feels like a direct violation of their comfort. Because your success kills their excuses. Your clarity kills their lies. Your self-respect kills their fantasy of being superior. You didn't outshine them. You outgrew the version of you that made them comfortable. That's the part they can't swallow. Not your confidence, not your success, not your glow, but the fact that you didn't need them to build it. That one move wasn't just a step. It was a declaration, a silent announcement that the old version of you is expired. And once a person rises beyond the reach of old narratives, haters lose their control. They lose their leverage. They lose the tiny power they thought they had over your self-perception. So now they panic. Now they gossip in whispers. Now they monitor your energy like it's a dangerous weather pattern. Now they act confused about why you grew, forgetting that people who starve you don't get to question why you learned to feed yourself. And this is where the psychological hilarity begins, because haters don't know how to behave when the prey stops playing dead. They don't know what to do when the target they studied suddenly stops moving according to their expectations. They stand there blinking, waiting for you to glitch back into the version of yourself that made them feel superior. But you don't. You keep moving, keep rising, keep shifting into something they don't have the vocabulary for. And that terrifies them, because now they have to face the truth. The version of you they were comfortable with was never your final form. It was just the prequel. It was the draft before the rewrite. It was the muted silhouette of someone who hadn't stepped into their full voltage yet. So now they watch you like they're waiting for a plot twist. They scroll through your updates, trying to decode the new blueprint of your life. They treat your silence like encrypted messages. They analyze your posture like it's a political statement. Because once you evolve, everything you do becomes suspicious to the people who didn't want you to evolve in the first place. Your confidence feels like rebellion. Your growth feels like a threat. Your glow feels like a slap to their ego. And the irony is, you're still not doing anything dramatic. You're just existing in a version of yourself they told themselves you'd never reach. And that was enough to trigger a full-scale meltdown across the hate department. Haters have a way of rewriting history when they feel threatened. They pretend they always believed in you. They claim they always saw your potential. They swear they were rooting for you from day one. But behind their sudden politeness is panic. Panic because the blueprint they built of you just got invalidated. They're not dealing with the person they thought you were. They're dealing with someone who slipped out of their psychological grip. Someone whose energy no longer bends under their expectations. Someone who moved one step forward and somehow shattered every illusion they built. Because that's the thing about making one bold move. It exposes how many people were secretly invested in your stagnation. It exposes how many people felt comfortable only when you were uncertain. It exposes how many people depended on your doubt to validate their own existence. And when you remove that doubt from your system, their systems malfunction. They can't compute a version of you that doesn't require their validation. They can't comprehend a version of you that thrives without their permission. So they default to their survival strategies: envy, gossip, projection, condescending silence. All because you finally played a card they didn't see coming. And let's be real, you didn't evolve overnight. You didn't randomly level up out of nowhere. You grew because you were forced to. You rebuilt yourself because you had to. You found strength in places most people avoid. You carved power out of moments that would have crushed them. You stitched yourself together in the dark while they laughed in the daylight. And they thought you weren't paying attention. They assumed you were breaking. But really, you were taking notes. You were learning their patterns. You were studying their intentions. You were watching every silent betrayal, like a scientist examining samples under a microscope. So when you made that one move, however small, however subtle, it wasn't impulsive. It was strategic. It was the beginning of a new chapter they weren't invited to. And that's what triggers them the most. Not that you grew, but that you grew without them. That you didn't seek their advice. That you didn't ask them how to evolve. That you didn't consult their limited worldview before stepping into something bigger. They aren't mad because you changed. They're mad because you changed beyond their influence. People who wanted you small suddenly feel suffocated in your presence. People who wanted you insecure suddenly feel exposed. People who wanted you dependent suddenly feel irrelevant. They don't know how to function around the version of you that exists now, because the new you doesn't play by the old rules. The new you doesn't kneel at their emotional feet. The new you doesn't hand out explanations like apology letters. The new you doesn't shrink yourself to fit into their comfort zones. And for people who only tolerated you when you were easy to control, this version of you feels dangerous. They whisper things like, "Who do they think they are now?" As if your evolution requires their approval. They act like you changed overnight, forgetting they were the pressure that forced the metamorphosis. They claim you're acting different, when in reality, you're simply not acting anymore. You're no longer performing humility to make insecure people feel safe. You're no longer dimming your fire so others can pretend they're glowing. You're no longer swallowing your worth to keep fragile egos intact. And that's what makes them spiral. The realization that your glow doesn't include them anymore. The realization that you're stepping into a timeline where their opinions have zero influence. The realization that you're becoming someone they can't predict, can't control, can't manipulate. To them, your growth is a crisis. To them, your silence is a threat. To them, your independence is a betrayal of the identity they assigned you. Because your evolution didn't just disrupt their expectations, it exposed them. It revealed who relied on your weakness. It revealed who enjoyed watching you struggle. It revealed who felt superior only because you were playing small. When you took that step, you didn't just elevate yourself. You raised the mirror they've been avoiding for years. And now they have to look into it. Now they have to confront the truth that while you were growing, they stayed stagnant. While you were healing, they stayed bitter. While you were evolving, they stayed comfortable. And your progress doesn't let them escape that reality. So they attack in subtle ways. They send passive messages. They pretend not to notice your glow. They critique your moves as if they're qualified to judge them. They downplay your progress to make themselves feel taller. But beneath all that noise is fear. Fear that they lost access to the person they once controlled. Fear that your rise will force them to question their own. Fear that your one move wasn't a move at all, but the beginning of an unstoppable sequence. And they're right, because evolution doesn't stop once it starts. Growth doesn't reverse because someone is uncomfortable. Confidence doesn't shrink because someone is intimidated. You made one move, and it rewired the entire environment around you. You shifted one piece, and suddenly the whole game changed. You breathed differently, and insecure people lost oxygen. Because what they're feeling now isn't jealousy, it's exposure. Exposure to the truth that you were never the weak link. Exposure to the truth that they depended on your silence. Exposure to the truth that they underestimated someone who was quietly building ammunition in the dark. And the most unsettling part for them, this wasn't even your final form. This wasn't the masterpiece. This wasn't the grand reveal. This was the warm-up, the preview, the opening credits to a movie they never thought you had the budget to produce. Because the truth is, people who underestimate you always assume your moves are accidents. They assume your decisions are impulsive, your confidence is temporary, your elevation is a phase. They don't realize you've been rehearsing this evolution for years, quietly, privately, intentionally, right under their noses. Your one move felt sudden to them, only because they were too busy waiting for your downfall to notice your rise. They thought you were stagnating, but you were studying. They thought you were breaking, but you were rebuilding. They thought you were finished, but you were forming into something unrecognizable. And now, as you step forward, the ground beneath their ego begins to disintegrate, because they're finally seeing what you look like without their limitations wrapped around your ankles. They finally see the version of you that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't justify, doesn't shrink, doesn't dilute itself to make others feel superior. They see the real you, and it frightens them. Because once a person outgrows the cage others designed for them, the jailers lose relevance. They lose purpose. They lose their imagined authority. And nothing terrifies a hater more than realizing you no longer belong to the narrative they wrote. Your move didn't just advance your life. It erased their influence. It deleted their role. It removed them from the center of a story they thought they controlled. And now they stand at the sidelines, watching someone they believed would crumble become someone they can no longer predict or contain. This is why their energy shifts. This is why their behavior glitches. This is why their silence now feels heavier than their insults ever did. Because in their minds, you weren't supposed to outgrow them. You weren't supposed to detach from their approval. You weren't supposed to rise without having to request clearance from the tower of their insecurity. They needed you stagnant so they could feel accomplished. They needed you uncertain so they could feel stable. They needed you insecure so they could feel superior. But the moment you took that one step, whatever it was, your energy recalibrated the entire hierarchy. The people who once felt above you now feel strangely beneath you. The ones who used to judge now feel exposed. The ones who used to dismiss you now feel analyzed. They sense it in your presence, that quiet pressure, that sharpened aura, that newfound refusal to shrink. You haven't said anything, but your silence has become forensic. It dissects intentions. It reveals motivations. It pulls confessions out of people without you needing to speak. And that terrifies them, too. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're accurate. Not because you're loud, but because you're undeniable. Not because you're attacking, but because you're evolving. And evolution, to the stagnant, feels like violence. Now every room you walk into shifts around you. People change posture when you arrive. People choose their words more carefully. People who once dismissed you now feel obligated to show respect they never believed they'd owe you. Even those who pretend not to notice can't escape the internal tremor your presence creates. Because the moment you rose, the psychological landscape changed, and they haven't recalibrated yet. Your one move didn't just elevate you, it exposed them to themselves. They now have to confront the fact that while you were evolving, they were rehearsing excuses. While you were learning, they were lingering. While you were healing, they were hiding. And while you were rising, they were rotting. Your progress is their punishment, and your glow is their consequence. So now they try to rewrite the narrative. They tell people you got lucky. They claim you changed too fast. They swear you're acting different. They pretend your success is superficial. But beneath those flimsy explanations is panic. The kind of panic that comes from realizing they miscalculated a person's potential so severely that they now appear foolish forever doubting you. Your move didn't embarrass you. It embarrassed them. It showed how limited their judgment really was. It revealed that the ceiling they placed over you was actually the floor beneath your feet. They didn't just underestimate you. They underestimated the version of you that hasn't even arrived yet. And that's what drives them mad. The knowledge that if this is what you accomplish with one move, they have no idea what the next 10 will look like. They don't know how far you'll go. They don't know how much you'll grow. They don't know which parts of yourself you'll unlock next. And the human ego hates uncertainty, especially when it comes from someone they thought they had already figured out. Suddenly you're unpredictable in all the best ways. Suddenly you're a variable they can't calculate. Suddenly you're carrying a momentum that doesn't slow down just because someone watching feels insecure. And haters don't have the emotional elasticity to keep up with someone who's expanding at a pace they never imagined possible. You became the storm they swore would never form. You became the glow they swore would never return. You became the force they swore couldn't exist in someone like you. Now every update you post feels like a chapter added to a story they thought ended years ago. Every improvement you make feels like a crack in their worldview. Every win you reveal feels like a reminder of their own stagnation. And what they hate most is the way your existence now influences theirs, not intentionally, but inevitably. They can't scroll without bumping into evidence of your evolution. They can't gossip without accidentally revealing their envy. They can't pretend not to notice because your energy is too loud to ignore. You didn't need to declare war. Your glow declared it for you. You didn't need to clap back. Your progress clapped for itself. You didn't need revenge. Your rise did the work. And deep down, they know this is only the beginning. Because nobody's life transforms from a single move unless that move was the first domino in a long chain of unstoppable shifts. They see it in your eyes, the clarity, the detachment, the hunger. They hear it in your silence, the boundaries, the focus, the refusal to entertain what once drained you. They feel it in your presence, the authority, the self-respect, the unshakable sense that you finally stepped into the version of yourself that was always hiding beneath the rubble of old identities. This is why they're afraid, not of what you've done, but of what you're becoming. Not of the move you made, but of the moves they know are coming next. Not of your glow today, but of the radiance you're about to unleash. Because once a person activates their potential, the world around them trembles. Doors open that were once sealed shut. Opportunities appear where there used to be obstacles. Paths reveal themselves that were invisible in the dark. Your life isn't just changing. It's accelerating. It's compounding. It's rearranging in ways that feel supernatural to the people watching from the outside. And as much as they try to hide it, that fear is growing. Because somewhere deep in their nervous system, a truth is echoing, a truth they never wanted to confront. If this is what you can do with one move, then they are completely unprepared for the next chapter of your evolution. And that realization, it doesn't just scare them, it devastates them. Because the human ego hates being wrong, and they weren't just wrong about you. They were catastrophically, embarrassingly, monumentally wrong. Their entire prediction model just exploded. Their assumptions about you collapsed like bad architecture during an earthquake. And now, they're not just watching your rise. They're recalculating their entire memory of who you used to be, trying to figure out how they misread you this badly. Because the truth is, haters study you harder than your supporters ever will. They analyze your tone shifts, your emotional patterns, your habits, your inconsistencies. They treat your life like a surveillance project. They watch your every update like analysts decoding encrypted broadcasts. And when you made that one move, the glow-up, the decision, the step into power, they felt it like a psychic punch to the throat. Not because it harmed them, but because it forced them to confront their own stagnation. You grew, they didn't. And now your evolution is a mirror they can't escape. So what do people do when they can't outrun the truth? They start rewriting it. They start projecting. They start pretending your rise is a threat instead of a wake-up call. They call you lucky because admitting you worked harder than they ever dared to would shatter their worldview. They claim you changed too much because accepting that you finally found yourself would dismantle their narrative. They whisper that you're acting different because accepting your growth would expose their lack of it. But beneath every excuse, every passive comment, every tight smile, every jealous silence, what you're really hearing is the echo of their regret. The regret of not evolving when they had the chance. The regret of not believing in themselves the way you believed in yourself. The regret of watching someone they didn't think much of turn into someone who doesn't think of them at all. Your move didn't just trigger them, it convicted them. And that's why your rise feels so personal to them. It's not about you. It's about the version of themselves they abandoned. It's about the opportunities they ignored. It's about the bravery they never chose. You didn't just evolve, you highlighted their refusal to. And that's a wound they don't know how to treat. So now they navigate around you like you're carrying an emotional weapon. They speak to you with that half-respect, half-fear tone, reserved for unpredictable superpowers. They watch you like you might expose the truth at any moment, the truth that they never had any real control over you. They sense the shift in your energy, the clarity in your eyes, the stability in your spine, and it unnerves them because it means the dynamics have officially reversed. You're not the one being evaluated anymore. They are. You're not the one waiting for approval. They're waiting for your reaction. You're not the one trying to fit into their world. They're trying to understand their place in yours. Because when you made that move, you didn't just upgrade your life. You altered the psychological weather system around you. You changed the atmospheric pressure of every room you walk into. You shifted the gravity of conversations. You changed the pace of how people respond to you. Your energy now dictates the environment itself. People don't speak to you the same way. They don't look at you the same way. They don't assume things about you the way they used to. They realize they're dealing with someone they miscalculated, someone they dismissed too early, someone who quietly became the version of themselves they feared you'd become. Your glow is no longer just confidence, it's authority. Your silence is no longer absence, it's strategy. Your focus is no longer survival, it's mastery. And they feel it, not in their mind, in their body. Their chest tightens when they see you. Their thoughts scramble when you walk in. Their tongue hesitates before speaking around you, because now they know you can see through them, around them, past them. You're not operating on their timeline anymore. You're not moving from insecurity anymore. You're not reacting from woundedness anymore. You're moving with intention, with clarity, with a trajectory that doesn't bend to anyone's projections. What they thought was your limit was actually your warm-up. What they predicted as your downfall was actually your foundation. What they expected to break you only taught you how to bend reality. And that frightens them in ways they won't admit. Not publicly, not privately, not even to themselves. Because it means the hierarchy they built in their heads was an illusion. It means the power they thought they had over you was borrowed, not earned. It means you were never beneath them. You were simply early in your ascent. And now that you're rising, they feel the altitude sickness. They feel the drop in their relevance. They feel the weight of their own wasted potential. Some will try to disguise it with fake support. Some will pretend they always believed in you. Some will switch from envy to imitation, hoping copying your glow will give them their own. But imitation without evolution is just desperation wearing a mask. And you can sense it. You can feel who claps because they're proud, and who claps because they're scared. You can feel who compliments you to stay close, and who compliments you to stay unnoticed. You can feel who respects your growth and who fears the consequences of it. Your one move forced everyone around you to show their real face. It stripped away the polite illusions. It demolished the casual pretenses. It revealed the architecture of their intentions. You now know who's threatened. You now know who's jealous. You now know who's pretending. You now know who's watching with admiration. They're too insecure to express. Your move, your evolution, your shift. It didn't just elevate you. It restructured your entire social universe. And the most haunting part for them, they know this isn't your peak. They know this isn't your final chapter. They know this is just the prologue of a transformation they aren't emotionally equipped to witness. You became the plot twist in their story. You became the anomaly in their predictions. You became the evidence that they misread destiny itself. And every time they see you now, they feel the echo of that truth. If this is what you do with one move, one decision, one shift, one moment of alignment, then what the hell is coming next? You can see it in the way they avoid eye contact. You can see it in the tension behind their forced smiles. You can see it in the frantic way they watch your updates. Because they're not just scared of your second move. They're terrified of the momentum behind it. And that momentum, it's just beginning. It's stacking. It's multiplying. And for the first time in their lives, they're starting to understand something they never wanted to admit. You were never dangerous because of what you did. You were dangerous because of what you could do. The potential they dismissed, the power they ignored, the inner fire they joked about. All of it is now erupting in real time. They're witnessing the version of you that emerges when you stop carrying dead weight, when you stop negotiating with your own worth, when you stop trying to convince stagnant people why you deserve to rise. Your momentum is the part they can't fight, because it's not temporary, it's not accidental, it's not random, it's structural, it's systemic, it's woven into every new boundary you've established, every upgrade you've accepted, every layer of yourself you've peeled back to reveal the steel underneath. You aren't just rising, you're accelerating. And acceleration terrifies people who chose stagnation as a lifestyle. Suddenly they see you moving at a speed their excuses can't keep up with. They see you evolving in ways that make their own comfort zones feel like traps. They see you stepping into spaces they never believed you were capable of entering. And what unsettles them most is that your rise is no longer a possibility. It's a trajectory. A straight line drawn by destiny across the skyline of your life, pulling you upward whether they applaud or choke. Momentum changes everything. Momentum exposes who was walking with you and who was holding you back. Momentum reveals who only loved you when you were losing. Momentum clarifies who was in your corner and who was standing on top of it, trying to keep you boxed in. Because when you start moving with purpose, people who used you as a benchmark for their laziness begin to feel endangered. When you start rising effortlessly, people who pretended to be ahead of you feel the ground beneath their feet collapsing. When your glow becomes a natural state instead of a lucky accident, people who bet against you start sweating like they've been caught stealing from the universe. They whisper to each other, "Who do they think they are now?" But what they really mean is, "How did we miss this?" Because the one move you made didn't just trigger them. It exposed the limits of their perception. It showed them that the ceiling they imagined above you never existed. It proved that their understanding of your potential was cheap, shallow, uninspired, just like their ambition. And that eats at them. It gnaws at their pride. It infects their self-esteem. It forces them to acknowledge something they desperately tried to avoid. You were never their equal. You were simply dormant. Now that you're no longer dormant, the hierarchy has inverted. The silent watchers become the shaken observers. The skeptics become the involuntary fans. The doubters become the accidental supporters, because every time they check your page, every time they lurk in your stories, every time they stalk your progress, they're feeding the very momentum they fear. They're contributing to the rise they prayed would never come. They're witnessing their predictions die one by one, replaced by a reality too loud to deny. Your existence has become a referendum on their choices. Your glow has become the diagnosis of their stagnation. Your evolution has become the evidence of their excuses. And that's why their fear keeps growing. Not because you're doing something to them, but because you're revealing something about them. You've become their unintended mirror, the kind of mirror that doesn't flatter, doesn't soften, doesn't lie. The kind of mirror that reflects not who they pretend to be, but who they actually are. And there's nothing harder to face than that. Your momentum dismantles their delusion. Your rise destroys their narrative. Your confidence erases their control. And once control is gone, their masks fall off next. That's when you start to see the full spectrum of reactions. Some become overly kind because panic makes them polite. Some become strangely distant because distance feels safer than exposure. Some become passive-aggressive because their ego still wants to fight, even though their spirit already surrendered. Some become overly critical because pointing out your flaws is the only coping mechanism they have left. But no matter what mask they choose, one truth glows beneath all of them. Your evolution reminds them of what they will never become. This is why your presence now feels expensive to them. It costs them their comfort. It taxes their insecurity. It drains the reservoirs of superiority they used to rely on. Every step you take forward reopens a wound they've been avoiding, the wound of knowing that they could have changed too, but didn't. And here's the wildest part. They know you're not even trying to flex. You're not trying to humble them. You're not trying to intimidate them. You're not trying to trigger them. Your existence alone is enough. Your glow is a threat. Your peace is a disruption. Your confidence is a catastrophe. Your silence is a siren. Because haters don't fear being defeated, they fear being irrelevant. And your rise makes them irrelevant. Not because you want to erase them, but because you no longer orbit around them. Your life moved to a higher frequency, and their energy can't survive the atmosphere. You're not on the same wavelength anymore. You're not operating on the same settings. You're not navigating the same emotional coordinates. You stepped into a dimension of self-respect where their opinions cannot breathe. You stepped into a timeline of clarity where their projections evaporate. You stepped into a season of expansion where their presence no longer fits. And they feel it in every bone, in every breath, in every insecure thought. Because your rise didn't just elevate you, it exposed the truth of everyone around you. Your one move was the beginning of a cleansing, a sorting, a recalibrating of your entire social ecosystem. Because when someone starts rising at the speed of purpose, the universe starts removing the dead weight automatically. People fall away, rooms shift, energies scatter, the atmosphere transforms. You realize you're not losing people, you're losing versions of yourself that attracted them. You're not outgrowing relationships, you're outgrowing your need to shrink for them. And that terrifies them, because they know once you stop shrinking, they lose the advantage. Once you stop doubting, they lose their hold. Once you stop waiting, they lose their power. You became the one thing they feared the most: self-sufficient, self-respecting, self-propelled.